welcome back to the SMITE Pro League in Season 9 of the SPL. We're getting ready to dive into our third set, but before we do, I just got to remind you about our sponsor, Prime Gaming, who's coming for us over in Season 9. If you haven't already gotten a Prime membership, you should probably go ahead and do that because you get all kinds of great benefits from it, and a lot of those come with free shipping, free music, free movies. If you connect your Twitch Prime account, you get a free Twitch subscription to your favorite channel. Also, free games every single month, and those free games rotate out all the time. Every month, there's a whole new catalog of games that you can get, and then free content in every other kinds of games that you're playing out there already. So, if any of those free things sounded good, well, then go ahead and pick yourself up a Prime membership, and then use Prime Gaming. Thanks so much, Prime, for being the sponsor. Season 9 of the SPL. I'm J-Mac. I got Mifflin joining me up on the desk as we go to our third and final set of the day, and a big matchup to watch out for. The Tartarus Titans, the Atlantis Leviathans squaring off.
Yeah, I'm really excited for this one, man. I feel like this is going to be a much more contentious set compared to what we had just got the pleasure of watching. Of course, the reigning world champions, the Tartarus Titans as well. These guys pretty close to each other in standing, so massive implications as we start to go forward. And both teams, I had an opportunity to talk with them. Seem like they're ready for today.
Well, they're going to need everything they can get in order to find a win up against each other. A look at the schedule from what you've missed already today. A 2-0 by the Oni Warriors to start out against the Solar Scarabs. And the Camelot Kings just finished their 2-0 set against the Valhalla Valkyries. That leaves us with our third and final set, the Titans and the Levis to square off. And what's been a pretty quick weekend of SMITE. I mean, we've had some weeks where we get maybe 1-2-1. We've had some weeks where we get none of the maps at all. We've also had a couple of weeks where there's nothing but 2-1s to start things out. And now to take a look at the standings, Tartarus Titans and Leviathans tied both 4-4. Titans, just by nature of their win-loss record at least, is their plus and minuses and all that, have put them in the 4th seed. But all it takes is this one game for one of those ones to be the clear above the other.
Yeah, so if the Leviathans win here, they jump up to 4th. Tartarus Titans down to 5th, I believe, or maybe because of how it works.
I think probably
the
because
Jade
of
Dragons, they go straight to 6th, even though the Dragons haven't played as many. I'm not good at math, man.
That's why we have people in the room back that way that are.
I'm just here to talk about SMITE.
Yeah, we talk about the SMITE. They do the cool math for us and a lot of the cool graphic stuff. That way we can at least tell you guys what you're already maybe seeing on the screen. And if you haven't already picked up from what we've been talking about with the Titans and the Leviathans, we'll talk a little bit about these two teams, starting off with the Tartarus Titans and their mid laner, Paul. Paul has been on the rise ever since he made his way over into the SPL. I mean, years of consistency across the board from him. At one point, Season 8, and I think throughout the entire Season 8, was the least dying player in the league as a whole, bar none. And it's going to be, he's been able to make a lot of ways for his team. He's had a very unique god pool throughout the years. Hell has always been a go back to him. ESET's kind of been making his way, or making her way up into his god pool at the very least here. So a lot of diversity amongst just the mid lane of the Tartarus Titans.
Yeah, the Morrigans, the ESETs, the Hells, the things like that. I am wondering if we're going to start seeing a bit more of the Paul Ullr back in when Paul just like first jumped into the league. Ullr was one of his mainstays. We've been seeing a couple of mid laners put a bit more presence there as well. I mean, Sheento, one that is very willing to go towards that Ullr, so even could be a contentious pick between these two squads, as you can almost use it as like a 4th ban if Paul decides to take it first overall for himself. But Paul, of course, the top killer of the Tartarus Titans, averaging 6 so far this phase per match, has looked very good, and I expect him to look pretty good here today as well.
You know what I will say, man? I do miss the Ullr. That was always one of my favorites to watch. I also miss the Habwa. Like, that was such a signature pick for Paul back in the day.
You mean
between
the Peebo?
Yeah, the Peebo. Also,
that's right.
The Preya, whenever he was playing back at the SCC level. I mean,
okay, yeah,
those are some days out there. We talked a lot about Paul. Let's talk to Paul, mid laner for the Tartarus Titans, standing by for the pregame interview. Paul, I missed some of the old picks. You know, you don't have to tell me if you are going to play them. Do you think we're going to see some of those old school picks from years back in your old days of SCCs anytime soon?
Dude, I mean, I love those gods, man, but they've just been nerfed, man. Like, I want to play Hebo, bro, but they nerfed him so hard. How can I play him, man? But yeah, Ullr, I mean, I'm down. I love Ullr.
Well, maybe we'll get to see Ullr. I will say, though, I mean, with that new patch that's coming out, some of the new earrings that are coming through, I've already seen some clips going along Twitter. Maybe we do see the Hebo. I think I was seeing, like, some crazy cooldown resets on there. There's going to be some weird shenanigans in the next patch. You know, maybe we'll get to talk to you and some of the other SPL players about that as that one starts coming through. But your match against the Leviathans, I mean, this is a coveted match between you guys, between the World Championship Finals matchup, and then all throughout these phases has been a matchup. Is this kind of one of y'all's harder matches to go up against in the league?
I'd say it's about, I mean, I don't know. I think all the teams in the league are pretty good. So I don't think it's like necessarily like the hardest or like the easiest. So I don't know, probably somewhere around like the middle-ish. I don't know, man.
Mid-diff.
A little bit out there. And talking about the mid lane, as Mifflin brings up, you're going up against Sheento. We talk a lot about how Sheento is one of the best farmers in the league as far as the mid lane is concerned. Always able to get that power farm out there, usually starving his jungler. I mean, what's it like to go up against a a mid laner who focuses so much on the farm compared to the fight?
Yeah, I know that was like a style like a while ago. He'd always be ahead because he got so much farm, but I'm not sure recently they've been doing that. I'm not 100% sure, but I think they may have toned it down a bit. Like he shares a bit more now. I'm not sure.
All right, man. Well, thanks so much for coming by for the pregame interview. I'll let you get back with the team. Good luck in your set.
Thank you.
So maybe Paul thinking maybe a little bit less of the farm oriented on Sheento, though the last match that at least we got to watch, Sheento did at least keep himself at the top of that GPM chart for his team, making sure to hit that level 20 at like 18, 19 minutes, even when the rest of his team may have been struggling throughout. But this Leviathans team, they're really unique to the league in that aspect, where they are willing to put so much farm in their mid laner. You know, we talk about support starving themselves for farm. That way their carries or their mid laners can get ahead. But it's really a couple of players on this team who kind of starve themselves for farm because they know when the Leviathans get to that late game that Sheento can be such a powerful aspect for their team.
And they put him on the high aggressive early game picks as well. We've been seeing Zapman kind of take over that mage role over in the dual lane, so to allow Sheento to play things like the Ullr and leverage some of that early game pressure. Worth noting though that Panitom is probably the guy who's sacrificing the most of his farm. Still the most killing player on the Leviathans at 7.43 average. That's 1.43 more than the highest on the Titans, but certainly Sheento has earned the right to take up all that farm. Just when he does get rolling, once he does establish those leads, will be a bit more willing to rotate towards some of these team fights. I think the Leviathans probably will have to start strategizing when they take these fights based on when the back camps are up. If back camps are up on the right-hand side, the Levi's probably shouldn't be fighting on the left, right? Because you know where Sheento's headed just about every single time. But outside of that, he is another very adaptable player. I said it earlier, but I do think there's a good deal of carryover between both Sheento and Paul's God pools. Certainly some potential to have contentious picks there. But Sheento just continues to do Sheento things, right? Like he lands his auto attacks, he lands his abilities, he farms up very, very well. And then once all that farm is accumulated for everyone on the team, you got to talk about the Levi's 5-on-5 engagement, their original call to fame all the way since the Sanguine days. Well, it's still there. They're still very, very good at that portion of the match.
Sometimes even 4v5, as they sometimes like to joke. Well, Zapman went down. Don't worry, it's time for us to get our team fight going. And the team fight of the Atlantis Leviathans has always been one of their strongest plays, at least throughout the entirety of their history, even when they started back years ago, even as an SCC squad way back when. Even I'm just even to throw a shot, even at their time when they were playing in the SMITE Prime League, the one that Jithan used to run years back through. I mean, this is a team that has stuck together for such a long time, and you can see the fruits of that labor throughout. Picks in advance for game number 1 between the Atlantis Leviathans and the Tartarus Titans will kick off. And talking with Paul on that one, he said, I want to play the Ullr. That god's fun, but he's been nerfed, but we still see the Leviathans breaking that one out. Sheento's been playing that one consistently. Might be a hot pick between the two of those teams if it manages to get through.
It could. Whether or not it gets through, yet to be seen. Freya and Chernobog taken off the table. Freya, certainly one of the best side laners right now. We've heard Zapman sing her praises, not only an early game god, a mid game god, but also late, every single portion of the match. One of the strongest for Freya. Chernobog, I think, has seen a good deal of presence on both of these teams. More often, CycloneSpin, one of the premier Chernobog players in the league, but also Sheento himself has played it a couple times. We've got to look at a few of his highlights as we were gearing up for this match, but it's the Leviathans who take that off the table themselves. Another Magical Hunter ban here. So that's going to leave up potentially a good deal of high priority picks. Yamoja, still one that is available. Wouldn't be surprised if we see a ban go that way. Both of these teams have been apt to go towards E-set. Titans more so in mid, Leviathans more so in the duo, but maybe not a topic of conversation as it has been banned out as well. Looks like maybe that Ullr could be the top pick overall, unless it gets banned here by the Levi's.
Yeah, Levi's have been top picking the Ullr when it is available, leaving something for that early pressure for Sheento in the mid lane. We'll have to see if it makes it through, though there are still a ton of picks out there available, even if this Ullr does make it through. Could be a top pick, but then there's still Osiris, Nemesis, Erlang, Shen, Khepri, Xing, Shen. The list goes on of what you're willing to potentially give up if that Ullr is going to be the first pick. The Leviathan's taking a little bit of time before they go with that last ban. And it will be the Huang taken away.
Khepri?
So Khepri is up, something that Aror has really liked to play quite a bit. Ullr is up. If they want to give that one over to Paul, let him have a little bit of fun in that mid lane.
Okay.
And it will be so. So, Paul alluding to wanting to play some of those gods, and now we'll get the chance to.
Well, CycloneSpin also very capable playing it. We've seen SOT play it a few times as well. I know CycloneSpin's going to play Warriors, all right, I know. But
SOT's going to play Poseidon.
Well, yeah, he could also play the Ull. Who's to say? He's played it a fair bit of times.
You're right to say there are 3 people who could just take that god at any point to them who would be willing to take it away from Paul. But if we're going off the history of the Titans, at least in the last couple of sets, this might be the best time for Paul to be able to get that pick himself. On the opposite side, Osiris and Khepri locked in for the Leviathans, so 2 powerful picks over them. A little bit of safety in the backline with the revive from Khepri, and just great frontline initiation for Osiris.
So maybe we see the Titans try and get themselves their support here. Could be that the Leviathans in a position to dedicate a couple more bans that way. Instead, Nemesis locked in, has some decent defense shred, can deal with the passive Osiris as well as that tether. Synergizes well with the Ull. Both of those 2 very good, high pressure, around level 3 gods. So keep your eyes on them if they are going together in that mid 3v3. Well, there you go. It's not the Pooler, it's the Morrigan. It's gotta be, right?
Is it guaranteed though? Is the question.
Well, no, nothing's guaranteed.
I'm never sure in this league anymore. If we go back to season 8, and even if we go back to the early stages of season 9, we could probably safely say Morrigan mid, Ullr into the dual lane for someone like Cyclone. Nowadays, Mifflin, I don't think anything is ever set in stone. Surely nothing ever is, but it's a lot easier to at least be able to decipher the writing on it. And now with the last pick by the Leviathans before the next wave of bans, it will be Artio and then Xing banned away by the Levi's.
So the Leviathans in a position where they can just continually target out these Guardians. The only thing we know for a fact is that a support hasn't been locked in for the Tartarus Titans. The Morrigan could be ADC, could be mid, could probably be solo lane. The Ull, the exact same thing. Nemesis, I'm thinking just has to go to the jungle, but if CycloneSpin wanted to take it, if SOT wanted to take it, still certainly a possibility and one that we've seen a fair bit in the past. Bellona taken off the table by the Leviathans. Maybe saying they don't think CycloneSpin's god's been taken just yet.
Maybe not. Maybe just kind of forcing him to not play that Bellona. I remember when we were talking with Barracuda after his set against the Bolts, he was just sitting there going, man, real fun playing Jingwei against Bellona. I auto-attack him, he disarms me, then I try and auto-attack him again. He's already got block stacks up, such a fun lane to deal with. So maybe the Leviathans, at least in that instance, Zapman not wanting to go through the same turmoils that Barracuda did.
Yeah, so Heimdallr locked in. That does tell me it is likely going to be Zapman playing a standardized Hunter. If it is going to be an aggressive selection for the Tartarus Titans in the dual lane, Heimdallr, just about the safest selection you can get. Just the ability to teleport nearly globally, CC immunity on the dash, knock-up immunity from the Gjallarhorn makes it very, very difficult to deal with this god. And even if you want to send your jungler over, he's got just more vision than everybody else, can spot you coming from just about a mile away. So I like this draft a whole lot from the Leviathans. I mean, largely standard. Your front line incredibly strong. Top 3 all pretty strong on the dive, but more often than not, we'll see the Khepri hovering closer to that back line so they can just line up the Scarab's Blessing, and the back line is already pretty safe with the Heimdallr locked in. The Titans, on the other hand, have got themselves a pretty aggressive composition. We don't really have a good look at what this Morrigan is going to transform into. The Titans generally do have a couple of key combos that they'll try to go towards with this pick. Maybe the Cthulhu could get locked in here. Certainly some potential there. Not exactly the best shred composition from the Leviathans. If you want, have Nemesis go in the solo lane, have a Daji, double Daji composition, pretty strong as well. Hard to say, man. I've been playing this game for the better part of a decade, and the compositions in the most recent months have just really made me question everything I've learned over the years.
This doesn't fully help answer the question if this is a Ho Yi.
Ganesha
locked in, Ama locked in. So, we've seen Morrigan go to the dual lane once with Zapman before, so Morrigan could go over to ADC still.
No shot, right?
I'm really just banking on seeing Paul back on Ullr. I just want to see the old school one more time, but it is quite possible we do just see a normal, and I say normal compared to what we have been seeing out of the Titans and some other teams recently, draft out of them with Ganesh, Ama. Ganesh, unlikely to go anywhere except for the support role. Ama we saw flex with the Dragons towards Pagon in the dual lane, but just weird stuff with the Tiamat locked in. Certainly now this Heimdallr locked in for Zapman over in the dual lane, so we will see a Hunter over there. It's a question now, do the Titans put the Hunter over there to match him up?
Levi's completely standard draft.
Normal.
I mean, everything we see there, pretty clear. Osiris in the jungle, Khepri support, Artio solo, Heimdallr ADC, Tiamat mid. The Titans, on the other hand, and I know you want it to be the pooler.
I want it so bad,
I'm pretty sure we're looking at the Ullr, all right? That's going over the soul lane, Morrigan to mid, Amaterasu
over to Cyclone.
into the Cyclone.
Yeah.
And that's an okay matchup. Him to Heimdallr, channeled knock-up immunity, sure, but you could silence out the Gjallarhorn just with that dash. You've got decent boxing potential as well. You really do control that neutral farm on that side of the map. With Ganesh, you've got a whole lot of lockdown potential too. That is a high kill pressure lane. If it is Amaterasu and Ganesh together, I'm guessing. But that's got to be it. You know, I'm locking it in. I'm confident.
All right, so Ullr to the solo, Ama over towards the duo lane, Morrigan back in the mid for Paul. Is at least the call from Mifflin. We'll see if that ends up coming to fruition whenever we do get to jump into the game. But lanes aside, lane matchups aside, as we start kind of pushing in towards the more teamfight-oriented stage of the game, and assuming that this Nemesis is going to be going over to layers against the Leviathans, is there a particular place that layers can start putting some of that pressure to kind of get his team moving forward and try and get an early advantage over the Levi's?
Early rotation's hard to say, right? Like, you don't want to play around the Khepri, even though you do want to put your pressure onto this Heimdallr. Heimdallr already incredibly safe with that safety net of the Scarab's Blessing. Going to be difficult to find your pressure there. Soul lane, certainly an option. With Ullr as well, you've got decent ways to deal with that Artio dash. Just stun him out with the axe. The slow from there should be able to confirm you a good deal of damage, if not the kill. Otherwise, of course, the going towards mid is just the jungler's bread and butter, so Tiamat could be a decent target. If I had to guess, I mean, Nemesis doesn't really have the highest kill potential into the majority of this cast throughout the laning phase. It's maybe more so about the team fight, and the Tartarus Titans have got pretty decent team fight for themselves. I mean, when you look at their draft top to bottom, it looks pretty standard, right? Like, it looks like a standard composition,
I mean,
but it's just about where they land during the laning phase. So in the 5-on-5, I think Nemesis probably finds their value for the most part. I would expect SOT to play more so that counter gank role, just try and make sure this Osiris isn't allowed to do whatever he wants.
And so then when it does get down to that team fight stage, Tartarus Titans, again with a normal composition, we'll have to see how it pairs up against the Atlantis Leviathans. Game number 1 between the Titans and the Levi's getting ready to kick off in just a moment here. We'll get to throw it over to Dave and Gore one more time.
It is Worlds Rematch Round 3 between the Titans and the Atlantis Leviathans. I don't know at what point... Well, at what point, Gore, is it no longer like the Worlds? I guess when
the next Worlds happens, it stops being the Worlds Finals rematch.
It's Worlds Finals rematch all over again for the 3rd time this year between the Titans and the Leviathans in 2 teams, Gore, who have not been immune to some streakiness so far throughout Phase 2.
Both
you and
good
I were
and bad.
just talking, good and bad. You and I just talked about it with the Leviathans, beat the undefeated Camelot Kings and the undefeated Olympus Bolts. Then they get a win against the Valkyries, and then proceed to lose in their last 2 sets up against the Scarabs and the Oni Warriors. Titans have been very up and down and back and forth, and so I think for both of these teams, getting the second half of their phase back on track seems a bit dramatic, but off to a better start. I think very important momentum-wise.
Yeah, I think that's just going to be solid truth for both of these teams, right? When you look at the Titans, I think you had one of the most dominating performances. Actually, last time SOT was allowed to play this Ullr out of them, and so you got some insane games from them, and then sometimes you see them on the receiving end of 2-0s. It's a really weird balance. Same thing for the Leviathans, right? You knock down 2 undefeated teams, look good doing it, and then you kind of struggle the week after.
Jarcorrr jumped on by SOT, nearly first blood to the Titans. SOT has to use the beads. Panitom put a little bit of pressure back. Watch out for the axe if that connects. Also maybe looking at first blood. This is why. Just more buttons earlier in the game, Gore. And SOT usually able to land most of them. Like the mindset from layers, rotate to solo, use the blink, look for a slow. Just short of first blood.
Yeah, I forgot to put the magnet in Hardcore's pocket this time around. Like, I don't know what it has been. Every axe SOT has played prior to this game feels like it is just, it's going to connect. He could 180, throw it off the wall, like bounce it somewhere where it's not supposed to go, nowhere near you. Still, you're somehow going to get stunned by it.
Right.
Wild, wild plays that have happened on this Ullr. And of course, this time around, we've seen a couple of missed axes. Panitom's still hanging around in the area. And honestly, I like this play from the Leviathans because I think SOT is like the guy to shut down right now on this pick because of how prominent it has been over the last couple of weeks.
Agreed. Feels like one big volley from SOT. Looking at it, Panitom is spending a lot of time
Just hanging.
hanging out, staring at SOT. Blue buff just respawned, so ultimately Panitom wants to hang out on this side of the map anyway. Not the biggest waste of time. And SOT will be able to go back, pick up his own blue buff here in just a moment. And that's important. When you spend the laning phase on Ullr like SOT does, just constant use of abilities, you need every bit of blue buff help that you can get, every bit of mana help that you can get, just to try to keep Jarcorrr back. Jarc ends up heading back to base. I wonder what he itemizes into early. Yeah, obviously some physical defense. Maybe something like sovereignty early on in the build.
I'm really excited. I mean, not just the build for Jarcorrr, you know, Ronngyu as well, although Ronngyu looks like, again, sovereignty probably likely down there. I'm really excited to see what they can do to try and control this. Again, Panitom's hanging out on this side of the map. And with the back camps currently populated by layers, it feels like, yeah, if he had walked forward, there was going to be a fight. And it was just a matter of who could come out on top. Ronngyu, though, doesn't have any mana.
That was the last bit of Rongyu's mana. The CycloneSpin. Look, if he had an ADC, all right, never mind. He got it anyway. I didn't expect the damage from Aror and CycloneSpin to do enough, but that's on me, and it's first blood to the Titans. If you have an ADC there, you're just wailing. Ranged. No, but
would you have had the silence otherwise, Dave?
Yeah,
See,
right.
there's the real secrets. Could you have done the stuff you were doing?
Oh, no. Cyclone already... I thought he had already used his dash. I was wrong.
Wow.
Already out. Fair enough. And the Titans get a clean first blood.
Go in, like you said, get the kill. The mirror and a toss out there from Aror to try and make sure it ends up happening, as well as investment, at least from one relic there, CycloneSpin. But ultimately, not really too worried about it. And this is the thing, again, I was talking about this the other day with the Titans, and I love this, although that might have to wait a little bit. Aror doesn't have any mana.
Yeah, Aror doesn't have mana. CycloneSpin
doesn't have help.
Gets his dash blocked out, and Zapman for the Leviathans gets the Levi's on the board. Panitom has been active, hanging out on the right side of the map, looking for a gank, sticks around over here on left. Now CycloneSpin gets his dash caught out and ends up dropping for first blood. Gives that Heimdallr a little bit of a lead over here in duo.
I mean, that's a good pickup, right? Get Zap ahead, make sure that you can find those kills, and get some pressure onto him, right? He's a warrior. He's an early warrior. He's in a lane that's going to be difficult, I think. Well, and then again, anyone against 3 is going to have a little bit of struggles. So that works out well for them. I think the Heimdallr is going to chunk hard as well, so they have to be very careful. But it's the Osiris, right? The damage that you're going to get right now out of Panitom is going to be, I think, the most potent in terms of changing that lane around. The thing that's been interesting to me about the Titans, though, and this is what I was just about to talk about, which is that they are playing this, and Cyclone is playing this, I should say, as if, again, if he was in solo lane. He's not playing it like he's trying to be a carry on Amaterasu, right. And SoloOrTroll is not playing Ullr like he's trying to play a tanky Ullr. They're playing the other's role in a different lane. And they've done it enough to this point where I have to wonder if this is how they imagine having the 2 frontline presence on the left-hand side at Gold Fury fights, things like that, is more prevalent to them if it's better farm for SOT or if it's better for CycloneSpin. Either way, they've swapped the dynamic that we are used to in SMITE. And it's something that is really intriguing me because it's been mixed success, right? Like, we've seen it win sometimes when SOT gets to have a pop-off moment. We've seen it lose sometimes. And I'm curious as to whether or not this is, what their mindset around this is, right? Like, I really love to just pick Auror's brain and hear about it.
I remember we talked to SOT briefly, and as far as swapping the characters, but not necessarily the lane. Because the argument, right, that when we've talked about it has been, well, surely just because he's pro at it, surely SOT is better Amaterasu, and surely if you're going to swap the role, like, why not just stick SOT over there? And that's kind of what the J Dragons did the other day.
I don't know. I could see CycloneSpin pulling out a hey man, look, I won more lands as a solo laner than you have. Calm down.
Well, what SOT ended up saying was SOT is good enough at Ullr and Cyclone is good enough at Amaterasu that what SOT ended up theorizing was that there's more nuance to playing the Ullr on the right side of the map in the solo lane as a solo laner that just makes it more fluid for SOT. Like the change in dynamic of Sot playing the Ullr rather than the Amaterasu is less impactful than if he were to swap over to the other side of the map. Like Cyclone knows the left side better than Sot does, and Sot knows the right side better than Cyclone does, and so you swap the characters but not the lanes.
Not having to learn a new role, essentially, right?
Right, not having to learn the ebbs and flows. Though that's something that Jade Dragons practiced with a bit the other day here in studio. How about this? Immediate initiation onto Aror. That is out of nowhere. My goodness, dashes, blinks, engages all of it. But there's return pressure from the Titans. Paul, Lord of the Afterlife in. But look at all the damage from the Leviathans that is connected onto Paul. And there is indeed a return kill. SOT out of solo lane. Unfortunately, you can't frontline on the Ullr, my friend, and he has got to leave. Leviathans maybe with a bit more. Can connect in, but no, not to be. A couple more kills, though, for the Levi's.
All right, yeah, you come in, you burn Aror incredibly quickly. You force Paul to use ult, to use beats, and to lose his life. So a big win, I would argue, for the Leviathans. Maybe not anything massive to scoop up afterward. Red buff is an invade, and they get some experience from that. But that feels massive in terms of team fight. Plus, it shows that they just have the capability to kind of make a fight happen, right? They can just choose for something to start for them. I'm really interested to see, though, how often that's going to connect and how often it's going to find it. You know, locking down someone like Aror, kind of forcing the Titans into a fight is one thing. Team fight-wise, we know what to expect out of the Leviathans. Sheento on this Tiamat, at least last year, it was one of the deadliest combos you could have.
Zapman will have to Bifrost away. Aror and CycloneSpin, they've got pressure on this side of the map. Berserker shield completed for the Amaterasu. Ronngyu rotates through. Purple buff looked at, but Sheento is here as well. That's a great abduct from Ronngyu. The last bit of mana that this Khepri has might be enough to get the kill on the Cyclone, but no, the Dharmic Pillars and the peel from Aror, simply too good. And CycloneSpin, sub 100 HP, will walk away. No successful purple buff invade, but at least you've kept your life.
Honestly, after the way the last fight went, yeah, that's a big win for him, right?
Yep.
Being able to survive there. That, I mean, the surge forward, the damage right now from the Leviathans, Zap's showing it off.
Does Cyclone die on re-entry? No, but there's a dazzling offensive. Whoa, no, Zapman and the minions proc it. Perfectly played by Zapman, unbelievable. CycloneSpin, he'll go down. Zapman hit the last necessary auto just prior to proccing the Scarab's Blessing, and then like 2 minion autos send Zap back to safety.
All right, sends him not only to safety, but like straight back to Rongyu's waiting arms. You can get some farm, stay safe. I mean, that was well practiced to the point. That one almost felt calculated. I guess, you know what? We'll have to throw it out there. The Zapulated, right? Like, I mean, he knew this one was going to happen his way.
This is wild.
And the fact that it starts, I mean, look at this. Like, they're under tower, and Zapman's still going for that fight. That's wild to me. But it's a couple of autos. The thing that is smart to me is it feels like he has an option right here to back away and runs into the minions just to make sure.
Well, I thought the dazzling offensive was going to proc the Scarab's Blessing, but the last bit of damage got taken down. That is, talk about thin margins. And that's the difference, Gore, between Zap being 2-1 and now on a killing spree at 3-0. This Heimdallr starts Transcendence, so you'd think you'd be stacking up a little bit longer. Not the case. Zap has been fighting around his team early in this game. Jarcorrr now jumped on, and there's plenty of damage when a Retribution hits its mark. A second out, though, as Paul is transformed. Layers being run down by Panitom. This would be great for the Leviathans. Blinks exchanged, but no issues. But now Sheento's gotten one onto Paul as well. Man, now for the second time this game, the Titans have gotten a kill, but the lopsided trade back has maybe made it not worthwhile.
Yeah, 6-2. I mean, you go in, you kill off Jarcorrr. Feels great for Sot. Not so great for now Paul, who's 0-2, 0-1 there for the jungle and layers. Aror is, currently on the zone trend, where he's trying to make sure that there's some space for the Pyromancer. Luckily, at this point, the Ganesha, especially with an Emperor's Armor this early on, Osiris is still going to hit you hard. You can see the damage is there, the slows are there.
Man.
But it took forever to burn through Ganesha's health bar.
Or I don't know that this momentum just starting to build up for the Leviathans. Now the good news for the Titans is the gold lead is effectively not there. It's 7 kills for the Levis, but we are about as dead even as we were when the game started. So the neutral farm, those types of objectives haven't gone over to the Leviathans. The kill pressure is there. It's really, again, experience wasn't that out of control either because there's a nice level lead for SOT over in solo, but Sheento and Panitom have some levels in advantage for the Leviathans. This would be a great pull for the Titans. I think it's the first semi-big neutral objective of the game as the Pyromancer goes to the Titans.
And, you know, I'm still a little concerned about how fast the burn has been. Leviathans being able to take good controlling fights, but gold lead's not like it's out of control, right? I mean, experience-wise, not really that crazy. You've got a level for Zap, a level for Sheento, and then technically a level for Sot going back the other way. So you feel pretty good, I think, about the overall like state of the game outside of the fact that it says 7-2. And you've died a little bit more often. Not the greatest position to be in, and again, some of the small things, like hitting that level 12 versus the level 11 is somewhat big, but because so little was going to happen in those levels, it doesn't make that big a difference. Itemization might be the other like big difference maker right now. Technically a tier 2 up for Sheento over where Paul is, but that's just the way Sheento farms usually. His net worth tends to skyrocket. And you can see, yeah, not surprising that he's up at the top, although not anywhere, you know, near as ahead. Only 500 gold on top of Paul, so not an insane difference. I also think it's worth, you know, looking at like nuances and things like this. You got like a lot of beads and Aegis on one side. Granted, you're gonna get the same amount on the other for the Titans. It's the late game, you know, having someone like Sot on an Ullr already over on the right-hand side of the map. For pyros, for fire giants, for fights, things like that. And CycloneSpin having this teleport early is going to be able to get over there. Zapman can technically travel, and as well as make people travel here. He can technically travel using the Bifrost over there, but like that cooldown gets so massive that it almost hurts you. And so I'm interested to see if that affects the Titans' late game in a positive way. If it is kind of just net neutral, it doesn't really make that big of a difference. Or if Zap is ever kind of left behind while CycloneSpin gets to join in on something big.
If you're wondering why the gold lead hasn't necessarily gotten out of control, look no further than SOT. He is 600 or so gold ahead of Jarcorrr. So where there would be gold leads for the Leviathans, maybe in the other roles, Sot has just taken over the solo lane here. Totem of Coup 7-2. That adds up over a period of time. Jungle farm has been more effective, and no surprise, right? I mean, Ullr can really burst down these waves eventually. So Jarcorrr is just stabilized score, but a more concrete explanation of where some of that gold lead may or may not be. Zapman and CycloneSpin in a 1v1. Zap used his ult just a moment ago, and so won't have it for this battle, but Aror on his way over, spotted out by Zap. And the ward coverage that the Leviathans have means Zap will take that fight no further. What a Gold Fury pull over on left, but also a fight for Paul in mid. Ronngyu, a chance to steal, applies the dot, but the Leviathans take it. How? Why does this happen? Why does it
15 damage, baby?
Come on.
Rising Dawn has stolen more objectives this year.
That is what I'm saying. That is unbelievable.
Than we might have seen objective steals in general last year.
Seeing one Khepri steal, is too many.
Yes.
We've seen like 4 this year. What? I mean, I guess with a higher play rate, the likelihood of a steal
goes up,
right?
21 damage, I think, was the lowest prior to this, like 15.
15 damage. That is unbelievable. And that is look at the gold. That's like hugely important. The gold was dead even, and now the Leviathans are like 1.5k ahead. That is like decently important as far as the early game goes. That is ridiculous.
You could accidentally do, like, I feel like just walking around the map, you accidentally take or deal 15 damage all over the place.
Right, just passively, right? Like
I look at someone the wrong way, and that's 15 damage.
That's 15 extra damage,
yeah.
Right. Well, what a play by Ronngyu. That's the writing was on the wall. He applies the dot, sends out the damage, and you probably could hear I had to like do a double take. All right.
Because the hail of arrows landed like right at the same time.
All right. I don't want to make a mountain out of a molehill, but
this is a pretty mountainous molehill, though.
It is a mountainous molehill for the Leviathans. Big player damage from Zap. Wow. You don't often see the charts look like that this early in the game. He is going up against CycloneSpin, but
well, he is kind of
surprisingly-
playing a solo lane right now.
Yeah, but right. But think about the flip side. Sot is even in damage with the next few highest. Sot's not like running away with damage in this lane despite early poke. Zap has just been so active against CycloneSpin. And this Heimdallr has really swung in the first few fights at 3-0. Zap having a good performance for the Leviathans so far.
Yeah, and feels really good. I mean, the 3-0, the 1 being there as well, 4 out of 7 affected kills. The way that he has been playing it, and admittedly there was a lot of focus on the left-hand side, but good rotations early on, good fights in the left side jungle, in the lane as well to be able to get pressure. I mean, both Aror and CycloneSpin at this point have 2 deaths. Paul kind of joining them on that mark. So it is impressive how much pressure they've been able to put on a completely different side of the map than what we've been used to over the last couple of games. And I think team dependent, right? I think there's been a lot of focus on the solo side. There's been a lot of wins because of that. Getting the junglers ahead, your solo laners ahead, things like that. But Zap is feeling comfortable, got a small lead.
Oh, wow. A steal back as the Titans take the Pyromancer despite the Leviathans pulling it. But now the Leviathans, fueled with rage from the steal, will end up picking up a kill onto SOT. So Pyromancer stolen away by the Titans, but you've lost your solo laner. The tier 1 tower is going to go down here. It's so low, and Panitom just needs to push a wave and get a bit more pressure over here on the right side of the map, and some pressure building on the mid tier 1 tower. If both of these go down, plus a kill, not feeling super worthwhile to steal off that Pyromancer.
No, I mean, it's, again, a little bit of gold back in your favor that feels good, but you have to play this carefully in layers.
Whoa.
Forced to dash away. Paul low. I don't know if you can take
Watch
this
out.
fight.
CycloneSpin has teleported in behind. Dazzling offensive. 1 stun on the Arc, who simply shrugs it off. Big damage coming out of Sheento. The Tiamat scaling up nicely. Paul transforms into the Osiris and uses the ult defensively. You will end up seeing tier 1 go down in mid. Tier 1 go down in right. And also a kill onto SOT in exchange for the Titans grabbing Pyro.
I mean, again, small loss, I think, for the Leviathans. Although, at this point, you know, 20 minutes into the game, it's actually maybe a bigger mitigation for the Titans, if anything, right? 3,000 gold at this point if the Leviathans pick that up, maybe pushing even, you know, 35, 4K if they're able to grab that. Then you're in a much more comfortable position as the Leviathans. 2,500 gold? I mean, it's a little uncomfortable for the Titans, but nowhere near as bad as it could have been. And it's small little things like that, right? Mitigating your losses where you can, even if you know someone dies massively there, and you lose Sot, it's not the end of the world for you, right? 1 death from your solo laner, you get the Pyromancer, you're not in a worse spot for a Fire Giant, and you're keeping up for the most part in terms of items. It is going to be wildly different builds. It's you know. Broke my brain a second because I'm so used to just comparing like cross sections, looking down, seeing what one hunter has, what the other would have as terms of carry. I see Zap, you know, the transcendence into the Aussie, into the chin size feels pretty solid. The equivalent of that, you have to jump up and look at Sot, transcendence, but is going much more for the Ullr style, right?
Yeah, right,
You've got the Hydras, you've got the Titans, you've got the Jotuns. You're going to hit hard, you're going to hit often, and you're going to burn through people. And so I think that's going to be very strong, and then you factor that in with the Witchblade and the Shogun's Kusari down there for Cyclone, so once they're joined up, you're going to have a little bit more auto attacks, which theoretically means with the cooldown you have going, more Hydra's procs, things like that, and they're going to be hitting a little slower, so Zap is still going to chunk, but fewer and far in between those autos than what you would be used to with the otherwise really fast swinging build.
Man, Zapman just full bot a silver branch. Getting Leviathans playing with a couple thousand gold in the lead. The metric that we set when we were talking about our last set is like, clearly you don't love the fact that you're 2,000 gold behind, but still not even close to insurmountable. In fact, still something I think the Titans might consider fighting into. Oni Fury looked at to teleport out from CycloneSpin, who just full bought a Spirit Robe. But ultimately, the Leviathans are going to slow play this one. Maybe a minute and a half or so until that Pyromancer respawns. It's maybe when you see the Leviathans, the Titans split either side of the map. Remember, the Titans were quick to pull that first Gold Fury before it was stolen away by Ronngyu. Looks like neither team happy with their prospects, but Titans are going to change that. Shoguns plus Sot equals a lot of damage onto the Oni Fury.
Yeah, I think it's kind of a DPS check, right? Like, okay, we only have 2 of us. I don't think we can get this. And they back away from it. And they go, well, let's see what we can do, right? How fast can we burn that? And the answer is pretty quickly. Not fast enough. Same thing for Cyclone trying to get out of here.
Dazzling offensive. Stuns Panitom. And then Cyclone dashes away. Man, Ama is hard to lock down, provided the body blocks don't contact the dash out. But Zapman's now used his ultimate. So is CycloneSpin. So which team feels like they've got the better end of that trade? Seemingly the Leviathans right now. Big team fighting ultimate. Ama now off the map. Oni Fury this time will not get stolen away despite an attempt by the Titan support. And Aror drops the Dharmic Pillar, sends the Leviathans back. And we are pulling the eject cables as the Leviathans able to get out with the Oni Fury.
I mean, again, being able to walk in, get themselves a Fury this time, not having to worry about securing it with something like the Sacred Dawn. Instead, getting a hefty push. I mean, you have to think about it. Pyromancer's up. Panitom's not going to get there in time, so Titans get that one. But you can fight for this.
Paul stealth stuns, but there's a Scarab's Blessing on top of Panitom, and Paul has taken a mountain of damage on his way out. Aror falls to Sheento as the first kill of this engagement. Another dazzling offensive from CycloneSpin. This time it hits 2. At least picks up the gold chalice and is able to dash out yet again as well. But now Sot on the wrong side of this lane will have a lead, but Panitom's got one as well. This is the same trade we saw just a moment ago. But are the Leviathans strong enough now to pull the Fire Giant?
Their low health bars, Cyclone's going to be able to sustain.
I mean, they could do it, right? And they will.
Zap is going to be able to sustain.
They'll do it. The Titan's not close by unless CycloneSpin makes some magic happen. Cyclone's going to be in range. CycloneSpin dashes in, but does not steal the Fire Giant. And Sheento ends the FG siege on a rampage. Leviathans up big on the Titans.
Look, when your carries are 5-0-3 and 3-0-3, or was it 3-0-5 for Zap, either way, yeah, you're feeling more than fine. They are protected, and they're being solidly covered to the point where, you know, Panitom, you had mentioned it took a lot of damage at the beginning of that fight. Scarab's Blessing is enough to mitigate that. Turn it around. Paul has very high single target damage, and unfortunately that plays into the Khepri's hands. Same thing here, CycloneSpin. I like the play, because I don't know what else you're going to do other than something like that. You have to go for it. Unfortunately, it just doesn't get too much done. Good news is, right now it's just been a Phoenix, which is not a huge deal. Unfortunately, there's still a lot of tower standing on the inside. Paul, I thought, was going to push maybe a little harder on left and maybe try to get that tier 2 before the Levi's backed. But I guess comms from the rest of the team pull him away from that. I think it's just been these transformations, and not that they've been bad transformations, but more that I think I've seen Paul have to transform into the Osiris and get out with Lord of the Afterlife than we've seen Paul be able to be aggressive with it.
Right. And
so just moments like that where it's, you know, it's kept him alive. Those 2 deaths are from way earlier in the game, but it is something that has been a lot more noticeable, right? 0-2-1, having to transform into Osiris to disengage versus 5-0-3 for Sheento, where Sheento's jumping into the fights. I think speaks levels about what the Leviathans have been able to do this fight. The burn that they have and the kill potential that they bring is gargantuan right now. And that plus the Fire Giant now reset. You can see all the items that they're getting picked up, some tier 2s that are going to level them all the way up, some upgraded relics, sometimes finishing that tier 3, lots of wards. Won't be surprising to see them group up and force the Titans into an awkward spot. And when you look at defense, I mean, Titans are in a not great spot, right? I mean, Sot, mostly single target damage unless they're lining up. Layers, guess what? Mostly single target damage. Paul, mostly single target damage. Same thing for Cyclone and Aror, although Aror has a little bit more wide abilities. But there's not a lot that they can do when they full 5-on-5, and Khepri loves it if they're all just going to try to burn down one person.
Right. Yeah, that's what Ronngyu has been really adept at so far this game. Those Scarab's Blessings have absolutely hit their mark. Leviathans really came to play here in this game. Titans on a couple of instances had individual picks, but the Leviathans knew their power spikes well, able to fight back into the Titans, take lopsided trades in favor of themselves consistently. And now massive gold lead for the Titans to stare down. Still a full minute on this Fire Giant buff. The Leviathan's not a team to force too much, though. The Sod
Does Sod have the bolts?
Sod has the bolts global emote. That caught me off guard a little bit.
Hey, so, like, look, it's a distraction factor, not just for us, but for the Leviathans.
Leviathan's like, wait, scrap our game plan. We're playing the bolts? I thought we were playing the Titans.
Yo, we got to take down Lasbra, dude.
Yeah, right. Where is he? Where's Lasbra? Wonder if. All right, we will see one attempt at least from the Leviathans under the mid lane Phoenix. Remember, right side Phoenix already gone. So this would just be extra Sot stun and nearly deleted by the Leviathans. Early ultimate out from Layers. That connects onto Zapman, but he'll back away just fine. A few more auto attacks into this mid lane Phoenix and then it'll go down. Panitom blinks forward. Goodbye, Paul. Paul doesn't even get a chance to transform. And now a stun on a CycloneSpin on the other side of the mid lane Phoenix. Gives the Leviathans a good look at another kill here in this fight. But Panitom and Jarcorrr, it's going to be a slow burn, but burns do hurt. And now Panitom on a killing spree as SOT jumps back to Fountain. And in 28 minutes, the Atlantis Leviathans build up a massive gold lead, a massive kill lead. And they will finally lay the Titans to rest in game one.
I mean, a lot of this one feels like it starts right. I mean, that first fight for the Leviathans, where it was almost surprising how much damage they were able to throw out there. Burn down Aror, burn down Paul, and really kind of kick down the door to say, like, this is what we're here to do, and this is what we're going to have for this game. This is what we offer. Zap starts off incredibly well, so Cyclone playing as a warrior is going to take a little bit to get more online, and meanwhile Zap on the other side has the level, has gold, is doing incredibly well on his own. I mean, you had highlighted at one point Sa has like a 600 gold lead, and you think that maybe is enough to kind of offset Zap doing well on the other side, but then the team fights, you've still got Jarcorrr on Artio, which is one of his best gods that he's ever played. All of the CC, it just felt like it was too much to overcome. And again, with the Khepri, with all the damage that was being dumped into like single targets, you know, Ronngyu could just pull people back to life and make things go well.
Gore, I think the worrying trend now is in like 3 straight games that we've seen the Titans. There hasn't been that spark, you know, the high octane style of play that this team has played with in the past. Searching for a bit of that in game number 2, Leviathans versus Titans, game 2, coming up next.
Pillow talk, glitter walls, simple minds want it all. Take it off, 5 o'clock. What come the rocks? What come the rocks? Dirty socks, kitchen sink, bring it on. Drink a drink, drink it off, take it off, take it off, take it off. Rhythm and blues, sipping on gin and juice. Drinking, 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 drinking.
Football, I guess. I'm not really a fan of either.
Football.
Neither. I don't like either sport. Hockey.
Football. Football or soccer? That's a not. I'm gonna go with soccer. My fiance is big into soccer, and she would call it football as well. So she'd probably hurt me if I said otherwise.
Soccer for sure. I'm from Europe and Denmark. Growing up playing soccer, definitely soccer.
Are you allowed to call it soccer? I'm on a team of full Europeans. I prefer football, aka soccer.
What a awful question. I could go for the brownie points and say that they're the same thing because my boss is a Brit, but I only played one of the two, and when I was in high school, I was on the defensive line for the football team, so we'll go football.
Ooh, that's a tough one. I feel like soccer, just because it's more fast-paced. I feel like I miss a lot of the action in football. It just happens so fast, and then you wait for so long. My attention span's just gone at that point.
I think I'm gonna go soccer on this one. I can't tell you the last time I actually cared about a football game. And that's including the Super Bowl.
Soccer. Well, technically it's football. It's technically football. It's technically actual football, all right? Actual football.
Football. I'm from the UK. It's just the entire world apart from America is correct.
Soccer. Well, American football versus, okay, yeah, soccer.
Football or soccer, so depending on where you're from, both of those are the same thing. Man, I guess it depends. I definitely watch more football, go Bengals. I think soccer has more dramatic moments though, like a big 1-0 goal scoring moment in the World Cup. I think that's maybe as good as it gets, but as far as what I watch and enjoy the most often, NFL, American football.
Hello and welcome back to the SMITE Pro League. And for our players in the studio, for our production, and for us here on the desk, we're powered by our good friends over at Alienware, who provided some machines for our players to play on, not just in the studio, but at home, for us to use these laptops so we can have all the information that we need for these sets, and for our production to be able to do all the great things they do on the back end of there. So thank you so much to Alienware for coming back in Season 9 of the SPL. Make sure to go to SMITEGame.com/Alienware and use code AWSMITE09 to see what great discounts and codes that Alienware has to offer to you. Follow them over on Alienware, at Alienware on Instagram and Twitter, and go to AlienwareArena.com to see what great stuff they had to offer for all of you at home. That's it for that portion, because Mifflin, you had a little something that you wanted to say about the this and that segment. It's J-Mac and Mifflin joining me, and you got something you want to say, Miff?
Look, here's the thing about opinions. They're all valid. Whatever you feel, that's valid. But sometimes your justifications are not valid, all right? Lermy Wormy is a game designer.
Correct.
So she should understand pacing, stuff like that. And she had the gall to say soccer, which is fine. You can like soccer. I don't care if you like soccer. That's fine. That's super cool. But faster paced. That's why. She said, I like soccer because it's faster paced.
Is it really?
What?
Football's in like 10-second increments.
And like soccer, games end like 1-0. You know what I mean? That's like standard. That's the norm. I don't know. Just felt wrong, and I needed to say it. I promise I'm not just buying time.
I'm glad you got that one off your chest, because whenever that video aired, let me tell you, he let out the biggest what that I have heard in quite some time from Mifflin. That's how you know that at least he had something to say about that. I've always been a little bit of fun. You gotta get an insight as to the casters, some of the people behind the scenes, even the pros, kind of get their opinions. I like Neilma's answer to all that one. Are you allowed to ask me that kind of question when I have a full team of Europeans on my squad? So he ends up answering soccer for himself, or football for at least those of you in the rest of the world out here. Unfortunately, we got our own football there. But let's get back to the game at hand, Tartarus Titans and the Atlantis Leviathans. The Leviathans come out on top to start this one out, and it was close for the draw. I mean, at one point I look up, it's 8-2 on the scoreboard. It's like 1,000 gold separating, and the Leviathans are then able to find a fire giant. From that point on, the team fight of the Leviathans just far outshined that of the Titans.
Yeah, I mean, even then, though, I think it was a couple distinct moments that really did bring momentum in the Leviathan's favor. This in particular, a real tearjerker for CycloneSpin. Just needed, what was that, like 0.2 seconds, and he would have got his kill, but Zapman able to turn that one around. Otherwise, also, Ronngyu walking up and stealing Gold Fury with the Rising Dawn. Probably not something you want to see too often, but I feel like does happen incredibly often. Yeah, we'll get a look back at that right here.
Damage.
This in particular, I think really the only separator, because sure, the Tartarus Titans hadn't been winning out in the team fight, 7-2 in the slash line favoring the Leviathans, but gold was separated by less than 200 at that point. But after that Gold Fury goes down, the Leviathans maintain their pace, keep up their pressure, transition in towards other objectives. So I think that is probably the keystone moment that really separates game one.
Yeah, with that Gold Fury, that's when Leviathans move forward. 5-0-5 for Sheento, 4-0-8 for Panitom, 3-0-6 for Zapman. Tough for the Titans to find a win when they can't get to some of these backliners like Sheento and Zapman, but that's always been the name of the game. Really with both of these teams, whenever we describe the Leviathans and the Titans of the past, and we can even still say of the present, they are teams that know how to protect their backline or at least create a wall dangerous enough for no team to try and pass through to get to one of these backline players, whether that's Sheento or Zapman for the Leviathans or Paul or CycloneSpin for the Titans. It's normally so difficult to get to that backline, find a pick onto one of these carries. And for this first game, the Atlantis Leviathans are able to create that stalwart wall and make sure the Titans cannot breach through.
Yeah, so the Titans could go one of two ways. They can either try and bring that exact same pace, because even with them so far behind, they were able to get themselves to those late mid-game team fights from relatively even. So you could see them either double down on that and just say, hey, let's get a couple of scalers, let's get Paul on something that can really start to roll us through that portion of the match. Or if you're concerned about that early game presence or about that stalwart front line, as you said, maybe you pick a dive-heavy composition for the Tartarus Titans. I mean, it's all dependent on whether or not the Leviathans go back to that same style of draft themselves. So I wouldn't be surprised if we're looking at like nearly completely different drafts from both of these two teams.
We'll see if those drafts change up in game number 2. Picks and bans ready to go between the Titans and Leviathans. Levi's up 1-0 from their victory in the first game. The Titans with that first pick, a lot of things up in the air to maybe be grabbed. That Ullr was left open previously in game number 1, was the first pick for the Tartarus Titans, and unfortunately for SOT, wasn't able to make too much happen with it. Accustomed to what we're more so used to. Normally when we see SOT take that God, it's complete lane control in the solo lane. He's either finding solo kills or TKOs over in his lane to keep people back. But we didn't get to really see a whole lot of that in this first game. We'll see if anything changes up. So far, at least one of the pieces taken away from the Leviathan's puzzle. It's going to be the Khepri removed, and the Emoja still taken away.
Yeah, that Khepri just did so much for the Leviathans throughout the early portions of that match. So many kills slip away thanks to Scarab's blessing. So many objectives lost just because of that rapid dot
15
damage.
still
15 damage, all you need, right? That's fine, and it worked out just well for the Leviathans.
14 more than you needed.
Banned out as well. Well, that's only if it was at 1 HP.
True.
And I'm not, I don't know.
Well, we don't know what HP it was at when it did damage.
So let's say
we
14
just know
more.
it does.
Yeah, it was at 1. Okay, so Heimdallr banned out as well by the Tartarus Titans, so the entirety of the dual lane going to have to be a completely different look from the Leviathans. And I think if you are going to be going towards these warriors so consistently as CycloneSpin has been, Amaterasu and Bologna very quickly rising through his own personal charts, I think removing Heimdallr has got to be the only answer, right? Like the safest hunter in the game. Probably don't want to lane against that when you are all in on just being a lane bully.
For the Atlantis Leviathans, their bans will be ESET and Chernobog, so still no global presence out of that hunter. It's been a little bit of time since we've seen Chernobog be able to make it through picks and bans, and will not be the case at least this time around. The ESET to follow up, something that for a couple of teams, especially a team like the Bolts, they've been struggling up against the ESET. It really feels like a lot of teams are finding some difficulty in dealing with this god, whether it goes over into the support role, which we've seen so much less often as of recent. It's been more so going into the mid lane. We know that Baronic had played it before. We know that Paul is very capable in his pick. Sheento is as well, but Leviathan's not wanting to let that one go over to the Titans. It's still using up the last of their bank time. One final ban, and it's going to be the Morrigan. Maybe not the ban that I was thinking that the Leviathans would go towards.
Yeah, curious. Now the Titans in a position they could either try and take away a Guardian for themselves. Fafnir been very popular recently. Ymir as well, one that's really quickly rose through those power rankings, or even could just go towards some tried and true standards. Ullr has been very good and will be the lock-in for the Tartarus Titans yet again. I would like to see it go towards mid though. I feel like SOT much better on those frontliners, right? I really want him starting off these engagements for his team, and we are very well versed in the Paul Ullr in mid, and it has had a good deal of success for multiple years, so very capable of going back towards that pick. Similarly, I do just want to see CycloneSpin back on Hunters, man. I know that he's not loving them right now, but it just feels like it's been a little too long, and the main strength of these unorthodox compositions is that the other teams in the league don't necessarily know how to play against them. If you're playing Warriors every single time, your unorthodox draft isn't unorthodox anymore, so gotta show that you're still capable of playing those standards. Huang and Osiris locked in on the other side. Whole lot of safety from that Huang. Good deal of early game presence, especially if it's headed towards mid. With Osiris, it's a pretty scary 2v2 for the first 3 or 4 levels.
I'm trying to go back to see how far it's been since Cyclone has actually played a Hunter, at least in the King set, prior to the one against the Bolts earlier on in the first half of the phase. I believe it was the last time that we saw CycloneSpin take a Hunter. That was Hou Yi. So it's been 8 games since CycloneSpin has played a traditional Hunter in his lane. Other than that, it's been either Warriors or Assassins for the Hunter player at the very least, or for the carry, I should say, for CycloneSpin. So yeah, I said with Gorr though, you know, you can take the solo laner out of solo lane, but you can't take the solo lane style of play out of the player at the. Actually, no, he played a Xbalanque against the Kings prior. Okay, so he's had 1 in the last 8 games. I make my correction there.
Was that a win?
What? You know what?
Why don't you answer the question?
No, it was not. It was a loss actually. It was on Xbalanque, 2-3-3 in that matchup there. So, has seen 1 Hunter game in their last 8 of play for the Tartarus Titans for their carry. It'll be Erlang, Shen locked in by the Titans. Leviathans will grab the Huang, Osiris, and Xbalanque. And as the bans roll through, because the Titans do have their support god, assumedly, with the Shen locked in, they'll take away Ganesha, Ymir, and then Hell and Bologna. Leviathan still not wanting that Bologna to get through.
I mean, the Bologna is just a really good lane bully, has phenomenal chase-bound potential into Xbalanque in particular, so I suppose if it's a pick-your-poison situation between Bologna and Amaterasu, I'm probably taking the Amaterasu every single time as Shiba, so makes sense to me from the Leviathans. And in even just taking the Xbalanque for themselves could pigeonhole Cyclone and going back towards those Warriors. Olorun getting hovered, though, is very strong into this composition from the Leviathans. Artio doesn't have a great answer. Osiris, pretty poor answer as well, as he generally starts the fight with that ultimate. I am liking this draft top to bottom a whole lot more from the Tartarus Titans so far. Xing Shen, dedicated initiator, AoE CC, Erlang Shen, the exact same thing, but also has a whole lot of early game damage. It could bring that pressure up against an Osiris, mean him tit for tat in every single one of these fights. Could even try and rotate over and deal with this Artio in the soul lane. Has decent kill potential there. The pin actually stops the dash in its tracks. So I like what we see from the Titans. It's now, what does the team fight look like? How are you rounding out this draft? Wouldn't hate seeing a little bit more consistent DPS. You've got high burst potential from the Ullr, but he's not the best basic attacker until about level 20, once that ultimate or switch stance is fully maxed out. Olorun would fit that style very, very well, and actually has Deceptive Clear. So if it is going to be a Geb, like we just saw hovered, would be fine in the laning phase. This Loki, though, is giving me a bit of pause. What does that even mean to me, right?
I'm head scratching because I mean, we've only been seeing Erlang in the jungle. Okay, so Hercules here. I'm not 100% sold now that the Xing Chen is going to Aror.
It's gotta be.
When I think back a couple of seasons ago, it was PBM and Aror, the monster Hercules support players. They were so dominant on just that pick alone that no team in the league was ever allowing one of those players to get it. And in fact, the two of them had to ban it against each other just because it was so dominant then. We haven't seen a lot of Hercules support as of recent. Haven't seen much Hercules at all, just in general, but now that we do have a look at Olorun and Hercules, you're talking a little bit about that team fight for the Titans, and how does that Hercules kind of round it out?
It's more CC, so you're putting a lot more pressure on those beads. It's a really strong front line to create space for that Olorun. You can almost have Hercules act as flex, right? Can either be that initiator for your team, or it can either be that backline. Oh, man.
Oh, Mifflin?
Well, I'll pull back the veil. I'll be the bearer of bad news here.
Okay, Mifflin.
That Hercules is going to CycloneSpin.
Yep.
And that Ullr is going back over towards SOT. That would leave the Olorun to mid. Erlang Shen in the jungle with Xing Chen in support. I mean, it's a bully lane.
Yeah.
I mean, it is an incredibly bully lane.
That is a run at your lane.
But Is it one that scales very well? I mean, the scaling's not what you're there for. You're there just to be a bully. You've got decent pressure on purple buff. I just want to see this dude play Hunters again, man.
Oh, wait,
really
hold on.
do.
Think about this now. This is actually Serqet's support for the Leviathans. That's the final pick that came through with the Artio locked in, unless for some reason they're going to flex the Artio over to support role, likely going to be slotted for Jarcorrr in the solo. The Osiris locked in. I don't think we've ever seen Osiris support that I can think of, so...
I mean, it could still be Serqet jungle with Artio support.
Okay.
I mean, Artio support...
Yeah, that's their possibility.
Yeah,
that
still
maybe
certainly
thinking.
exists. I think I just heard it was Serqet support.
Yeah.
Man, Serqet got nerfed off the planet because of her scaling changes. Why are we taking her back into support? I mean, Rongyu's the dude who's going to sit invisible and lane the entire time.
Soak up like
it
7
is
waves.
certainly a much more standard composition than the Tartarus Titans have got for themselves. Yeah, I think I prefer the Atlantis Leviathans. In the 5-on-5 engagement late game, I think the Tartarus Titans can work out, depending on what kind of build we see from CycloneSpin, and he's shown that he's very willing to just be a solo laner in the dual lane, going for that full tank style. It's curious, right? It's dependent on map state. It's dependent on which one of these teams establish a lead earlier on in the match. I'd argue the Tartarus Titans have got better odds at getting that lead, but just having that Serqet in the same lane as Hercules is going to find a whole lot of value with the anti-heal.
A little bit of strangeness across the board for both of these teams. Tartarus Titans down 0-1. Can they bring it back in game 2 and take us to a third? Or is it going to be Leviathans to sweep it on away? We'll throw it over to Dave and Gormizer one more time.
Will it be our third 2-0 of the day? That's the question. The Leviathans have a real good look at knocking out the Titans for a second time this week in the Titans case and getting the Leviathans back on track. And what a back on track win it would be here, Gore, for the Leviathans over the Titans if you're able to get it done once more. Now, the Leviathans are sticking with standard, right? Serqet support, yes. We can kind of dig into that here in a moment, but CycloneSpin now on the Hercules, keeping Sot on Ullr. I mean, this is one of the best. I think what I'm trying to say is I echo some of Myth's frustrations. It's one of the best ADCs in the world, and we haven't seen a Hunter in like 3 sets now.
For a while. He was also one of the best solo liners in the world. Okay. So I'm gonna.
Okay, I think it's important.
I'm gonna keep harping on it. It's just, I need something to pull back.
It's important.
Yes,
if
no,
I'm going to defend myself in this case, yeah, I mean, I'm not saying he is bad at Amaterasu.
But he's also spent more time as a hunter player, like carry player, than he did as a solo laner, right? So
in my mind, it's not even so much that. I think the dynamic of this team when Sot is playing a Hercules and Cyclone is on an Ullr just feels different, you know? Clearly, they have a much better idea of what's going on than I do, but if you lose this set 2-0...
I was going to say, the question is, do they? Because like if they lose this one, do they?
Do they have a better idea of what's going on than I do? Yes.
Oh, well, okay, that one will still be true, yeah.
Win or loss, yes. But if they lose this set 2-0, I would like to see a return to standard SMITE
for them. Yeah.
For them, even just to see. You know, you might lose that game. You might say, we don't like how this feels. But
so here's the question: does it make you feel better to know that this time around he's not going for the standard build that we've been seeing? Again, the last few times he's played a warrior over here, very, very similar to how you would play a solo laner. I mean, same builds, same relics. He went teleport first last time, was building Amaterasu the same way he would if he was the one where Sot is standing right now. This time around, he's gone for the Bumbas, gone into what could be tier 1 Heartseeker, could be, I'm blanking on the rest of the tree, like Hydras, things like that. I mean, it's got a lot of capabilities for what it could be. He's gone for the beats. This to me feels like CycloneSpin wants to take the fight, and he wants to be able to deal that damage, wants to be able to play Hercules a little more aggressively than what we saw out of the Ama. Ama felt very passive, and so I think that this is going to be a time where we could see a lot more out of it.
Links exchanged over towards Solo. SOT's got to jump away. Layers has the transformation, but he gets rooted in place. So slow, my goodness. Leviathan slowly running down Layers. He is jumping, desperately trying to escape. He is slowed for eternity. He'll have his transformation back up here in just a moment. My goodness, yeah, Layers, all right, you can walk out of that one, but the desperation jumps were tangible. And he is, and Layer's at least able to survive, and the Leviathans will at least build some pressure.
Yeah, I'm excited to see. All right, I want to say, like, Erlang, you know, the Erlang Osiris, it's easy to meme. Honestly, we've seen it quite a lot. I don't expect that's going to change. Well, I guess it could change mid-season. And so maybe pretty soon. But for right now, it has been, you know, back and forth. I think Panitom, the slows early on for the Osiris, along with the damage, really help him out. Pin on the other side for someone like Layers is going to be what can help kind of bring equilibrium to the matchup. But right now, like you said, you could see, feel the panic jumps, the tangible slows that exist there. And it's just so hard to deal with. But later on in this game, you know, those slows are going to be met with something like the Sanctified Fields from a Paul. And so that's going to make it a little easier, I think, for the Titans to help alleviate some of the pressure from the Osiris, assuming they can keep things equal. Granted, they do have a lot, not necessarily that goes through the Sanctified Fields, but that can pull someone like Paul out of the Sanctified Fields, right? You've got the Osiris who can chase you down and slow you, but I'm looking at Ronngyu, and specifically that ult, or Sheento with his ult, able to kind of move people, displace people, and potentially cause some trouble around that stationary teamfight ultimate, despite how big it is.
I don't know, I'm still caught. All right, so
Charge Morningstar.
Charge Morningstar. I was still kind of caught on the CycloneSpin Warrior conversation, because he did play Warriors against the Dragons a couple of sets ago, and they 2-0'd the Dragons. But that's when Sot went absolutely off on this Ullr in one of those games. So, you know, I guess what I'm saying is
Sot won MVP for that performance.
I'm really, it's very clear that I'm working through my thoughts live on air. I think what I'm trying to, like, it clearly has worked for CycloneSpin and the team. But in a set where like it just doesn't work out in game one, or if now on a consistent basis this team just isn't going to feel like their former selves in a few sets in a row, a few games in a row, don't be afraid to give one of the best ADCs in the world
an ADC. Yeah,
that's my soapbox, and I'm stepping off.
Well, I'm gonna pause it because, you know, we talk about it as carry, and you know, we limit it to carry because sometimes it's not just your ADCs, but like most of the time we're used to the attack damage carry, right? Your hunters, the people who are meant to play like that. The way that, you know, we've been seeing the Ama build, again, was very much like a solo lane build. This Hercules, depending on where it goes, might be more centric in less in the autos, but more in the abilities, which is still valid. We've seen it with some of the mages over here in the duo lane as of late. But is it what your team needs? I mean, you know, late game, luckily, late game, they still have an Ullr and an Olorun, right? So, like, sieging is going to be fine. I'm actually more worried about their tankiness, I think, right now than anything. It looks like Aror is going for the Chronos Pendant start, and so you're going to have easier to kill Guardians at the very beginning here. And it was very quick into that last game that the Leviathans were able to just kind of roll up, kill off Aror, kill off, I believe, Cyclone as well, where they just kind of stormed through the left side jungle. And so I'm a little worried about their early game teamfight potential. Late game, depending on how these builds shake out and where things go, I still think it could be anything can happen.
Kill potential here in mid, but man, Huang, so safe. But Panitom not. 9 turns blessing through, and how about that Sanctified Field? Funnels the Leviathans away from the Titans here in mid. And that was the disengage button smashed by Paul. And first blood won't drop just yet. There wasn't enough damage to have that roll out. Still could be. Rongyu's gonna have to dash away. And now we are gonna get a chance, I think, a Bitcore to see how this Serqet support can make an impact later on in the early game. Well, getting beads off of Paul, it's a great start. Remember, Ronngyu just loves to sit, stealth in mid, soak up the waves, wait to make something happen. I imagine we'll see a bit of that here in the next couple minutes.
Well, especially because you've got the two things. Look, when we talked about Olorun for the longest time, and I think this is still part of the discussion, which never mind, it is going to be fine. It's the ult and beads are down. You can just kill him.
Oh, man, Panitom walks back into mid. Paul doesn't have beads. And up down from Lord of the Afterlife grabs the kill. Aror luckily has the double jump and will survive. But Paul without beads, without Sanctified Field, not a good look. to be left alone when you can't find Panitom, and Panitom reminds us all of exactly where he is. Jumps in with the ult in mid and gets first blood for the Leviathan.
And again, I think that that is what you want when you're up against an Olorun, right? You've still got 2 minutes to do that for the beads, let alone without the Sanctified Fields, right? Both of them being a very long cooldown, being in mid means you're more susceptible to ganks. It's going to be more likely that the jungler's coming over to your lane, that the support's going to be over in your lane. And so I think with Ronngyu ult up, it should not be a far-fetched ask to say, you know what, go grab ball, throw him back to the Huang and the Osiris, and burn him down another time. Get these kills while you can, and force those Sanctified Fields if they come back up before you get that opportunity. It is just taking advantage of the scenarios you've kind of created for yourselves, and I think the Leviathans do it well there. And it's just the process of keeping up with that pressure right now that is going to make the big difference for them.
Roar would love to get some pressure on Zap. Remember, Zap felt just fine against CycloneSpin last game as Heimdallr into the Ama. Anything but this game. Zapman is level 8. But we'll turn our eyes over to Solo, and SoloOrTroll would like us to look the other way as Jarcorrr assists Panitom, and Leviathan snag themselves their second kill of the game, and this Osiris score really starting to make waves. You need the activity level. The Osiris versus the Erlang Shen jungle. We have seen this matchup against one another plenty of times, and it's right about now where these two picks start to roll.
And the fact that you're already off to a better start for Panitom, right, being part of the first blood, being able to help get this kill as well, I think all of this is important for them, because the Erlang, again, it's really hard. Good build early on. You can see similar starts to these two. But the slows from the Osiris just feel like such a pain. And look at this. This is going to be dirty if Sot doesn't notice it.
No, he doesn't have beads. He just looked to the side a little bit. All right, he's got some idea of what's going on. Ultimate down from Zapman. And one way to deal with the Ullr solo is to just return gank him. Sot, in the last maybe minute of time, has died off twice.
And honestly, that acts, I mean, the way they play that, right? Panitom kind of peeking around. A couple of those footsteps should be audible, are audible, I believe, to Sot. He turns, spots him out, goes, gets ready to throw. And then the minute Panitom kind of peeks out, Axe comes back, does a little duck away, and it's just clean for them. Now, I mean, pressure onto Aror. They get that ult. Jarcorr's the only one tossed back. I think this is going to be fine for them. So you've got a couple of kills where they're needed on the right-hand side of the map. But again, this is the kind of pressure we've been seeing for most games, is pressure on the right-hand side, where you're going to be able to then eventually, you know, in the next couple of minutes, put that pressure onto the Pyromancer and leverage it there. Whereas last time around, it was getting Zap ahead. Zap winning, Zap doing well was where they kind of prized themselves, I think, for the Leviathans. So I'm interested to see how this dynamic, you know, being more right-side heavy, changes some of that mid-game and late-game fight.
Taunt from layers, no good. I'm surprised the Titans aren't fighting more on the left side of the map right now. CycloneSpin's got a 2-level lead over Zapman, and has had a 2-level lead over Zapman for a few minutes now. Transcendence has been stacked up for a little while. I mean, Hercules is like the king of pressure, right? I mean, Zap is hard to lock down, has beads. Mobility, of course, in the Xbalanque kit. Maybe too early on to fully be convinced to pull out the Gold Fury, but CycloneSpin is that's your power point on the map right now. Sheento's 2 levels ahead in mid over Paul, just kind of passively through farm. Jarcorr's ahead, Panitom's ahead. If you want to fight, if you're the Titans, Gore, I feel like it's got to be left, and they haven't turned their eyes there just yet.
I wonder if
Leviathans
it's that lingering feeling from last time, right? They tried to fight Zap, and Zap just turned around on him.
They're going to get this. No steal. Gold Fury to the Leviathans, and quietly, Titans will just have to listen to the roar as it goes down.
Layers is still present. No blink. There is one for Aror. Auror's ult is back up, but no, they're not going to be able to pull anybody here.
No, but purple buff. Look, this is what I'm saying. I mean, CycloneSpin is ahead. Why not? Although, oh, this is disastrous. The Titans get the pyro, yes, but Sot took way too much damage, and now Sheento and Jarcorrr, in all likelihood, chase down a second kill here. Shell used by Paul, seemingly needless, but now blanked still are the Titans. 5-0 up are the Leviathans. Get the Gold Fury. get a couple kills on
Yeah.
right.
I mean, you're starting to look at it. Plus Gold Fury, minus on the Pyromancer, minus a purple buff, but plus a few kills. You're feeling pretty good about it. Ult just now used from Aror. I mean, that's just going to make things even easier for you to lock down. It's unfortunate here because Aror has to use that, tries to peel for himself. They're just going to continue this chase.
You know, this has been one of the most obnoxious series of slows I've maybe ever seen applied by an Osiris. Now, we got the like long chase onto layers earlier on this game where the axes just kept slowing and slowing. So, like, clearly we got a good zoom in on it then, but really feels like they've been making their impact to this game in a more tangible way from what we're normally able to see. So Panitom at 3-0, the killing spree for the Leviathans out of the jungle. Wasn't a horrific deficit, but getting a bit worse. Layers with a double taunt in. Actually has flipped around some of the pressure in this fight. Double pin forces not only the dash, but the leap out from Panitom. That was a red buff invade attempt. And good game knowledge by the Leviathans to immediately head out when they don't think they can win the fight.
And you know what? Keeping things at the same pace that we've been able to pressure onto the Titans here has been insane. I mean, yeah, I was going to say, you've got a massive lead in mid, a comfortable lead over there in the solo lane, and the fact that Zap is 2 levels down, but isn't feeling or like the need to be as cautious over here as possible, I think speaks wonders to him. Sovereignty picked up second, so trans into Sovereignty into what's going to be some cloak there for CycloneSpin. It's starting to lean a little more heavily into the defense side of things, right? It's still going to have some decent power. Should still, you know, with the farm level, be fine. Look at Panitom and Ronngyu. They want to punish this Hercules.
I mean, look, anything to give Zap some breathing room in this lane.
Aror.
Yeah, CycloneSpin's so strong. He's got trans, sovereignty, with all the builds you highlight there, Gore. Should be a good look for the Titans, and it is. That's why the Leviathans, you get a little pressure, yes, but the moment anyone else from the Titans shows up, you back away if you're the Leviathans. Gotta be around CycloneSpin because everywhere else is in the lead for the Atlantis Leviathans right now. Layers scurrying away, and the heal won't arrive. Sheento with the dueling dragons knocks down one. Now Aror with the whirlwind of Rage and Steel could set up a kill for SOT, but Jarcorrr requires the excavate to get taken down. First kill of the game to the Titans, but is it at the cost of a deicide? Sure looks like it. SOT sends the last bit of damage through, then the Leviathans will only miss one in both kills and deaths. Yark goes down for 4.
Yeah, Panitom was looking for that slow. If it connects on Sot, and they are going to do something here. Sot still playing aggressive. I mean, with low mana on both Zap and Panitom, you've got good damage chances. That's a good stun. Panitom's fallen back. This is good shots from Cyclone.
Yeah, but has Sot now just been baited? Sot has the damage to deal with both. It's just about doing it at the same time. Zapman trying to get away. Gotta dodge a little bit more. Sot trades out 1 for 1. Panitom ends up picking up the kill.
I'll say that's worth, right? Like, your team just gets blanked. Yes, you're dying very delayed, but, you know, you kill Zap. He has a higher level than you. You pull a little bit of gold back in your favor. Maybe not the best, like, scenario for you. And almost able to turn it into a 2-0. Or even a 2 for 1. But you still get something back for your team. Double the amount of kills that they could have. You put it on someone who I think is going to be a prime target for this. Slow down. Zap gets the Wind Demon now, so it's going to be even harder to do something like that in the future. Sot plays that incredibly well. Whether or not the decision, you know, you can debate about it all you want if the decision itself is fantastic, but the play and the way he executes it is. And it's good damage for him. Kind of makes me wonder what we're going to see. If he can do stuff like that without having to worry about the front line, and that's such a big asterisk, without having to worry about the front line from the Leviathans, then it feels like you're going to be able to do a lot. But Ronngyu, Jarcorrr, honestly, hell, Sheento, 2-0-6, Sheento is the one who is doing a lot. I mean, look at that, 10k damage, highest in the game. It's the roots, it's the fire. What Sheento is providing this game outside of the CC from the front line and himself, I mean, it has just been nuts in terms of the damage output coming from the Huang.
I wonder how...
It's insane.
I wonder how much. And I'll hold this thought as Layers is going to get jumped on, sent back by Serqet. Dodges out the dueling dragons. Panitom beneath the tier 1 tower. A sanctified field through. Great opportunity for Paul, and Paul able to strike Pater. Titans needed to get something going. Able to use the ultimate and pick up a kill.
They've gotten a lot of good pressure in mid, but a couple of ults, so 3 ults down on the Titans, a couple of relics there used in mid. With a lot of ults and a death for the Leviathans in what otherwise has been a very steamroll-y style game.
Yeah.
That's feeling pretty good for the Titans, right? Paul is going to be vulnerable for a couple of minutes. And so there is still opportunities for them, but I think that the rotations and maybe just the fighting from the Leviathans in general has been a little too much, right? They're going a little too far now with the Oni Fury up. I like this call. Head towards it, at least try to force a fight. You might be able to pick a kill.
Yeah, but the 3-level lead of Sheento is still on the map. Panitom has just respawned, and Sheento is here. Tier 2 Obsidian Shard is going to wreck health bars right now. Titans think twice. Need some more time for Paul to scale up here into this game. 3 rings, so not bad for Paul. But nearly got
Zap who has 3 rings.
Nearly got 3 rings. Although nearly is maybe an overstatement. Had an opportunity for a 3rd ring. Zapman able to capitalize just this past year at Worlds.
Do you think if Zap gets a 4th that he can trade it in for like a brass knuckles? Or like a diamondized knuckles?
One linked
chain
one
to put
linked
around
rings.
his fingers?
Yeah, maybe. Gore, if you ever won Worlds, would
and then
you,
if you get 5, you just get an Infinity Gauntlet.
Would you ever necklace ring, you know what I mean? Like, it's
like wearing it around your neck?
Yeah, like turn it into a necklace. I would say I think I would. I mean, I'd obviously want to wear it and have people see it, but like wearing something like that big and beefy around.
Well, I've gotten used. I guess I was gonna say, like compared to like the college ring. Normally, I wear it. Right now, it's getting resized and fixed up. And like, no, but they're much bigger than that. They weigh so much.
Like,
I don't know. I'd have to put one on for a little bit to see how it feels. But I have a feeling that it's probably a stay at home unless I'm going somewhere where I want to flaunt it.
Yeah, correct. I'm not.
Like if I'm walking on the stage in the World Finals, like if I'm Zap, I make it to finals again this year. I'm wearing all 3 on a hand and flashing it to the camera.
That's right. You're blinding your opposition. Zapman has 3.
If I'm going out to dinner and getting wings, those things are staying at home.
Yeah, probably a smart move. Look, if the Leviathans play like this, they've got a real good chance in any tournament they play in all year long. But we're still like in that gold threshold, Gore. Yes, 11-3 in kills is big, but we're still in that gold threshold that the Titans might not be wildly nervous about fighting. You're more worried about experience at this point. Pyromancer confirmed. Aror sends back a couple, but that slight stutter step caused Aror to die, and I think it did. It sent back a couple and ends up exchanging out his life for it. Aror might have died anyway, but pretty much confirmed it, but also confirms his teammates getting out alive.
I really like this play from the Leviathans. You have one of 2 options when you get that kill, and it's good for the tier 2.
Paul sends out Sanctified Field. Dueling Dragons slowly walking in. Panitom and Jarcorrr found the backline. In the same time, Layers has found the double taunt in. Healing has already arrived from the 9 turns blessing, and it was not enough. Ronngyu will take one last Phoenix shot, and Sot will be handed the kill.
But look at this damage. I mean, they got the minion wave with them when they did the tier 2. Now they're able to push even further. They get a Phoenix Sans Fire Giant, and they're still pushing.
My God, look at Zapman. He is wailing away as he got to get a double kill. Not with the Titan assisting the Titans, but he might just get it anyway. Healing out. And Zapman uses the Aegis. Aror just short of picking up a kill onto Zap. That's a Deicide plus a Phoenix for the Leviathans.
I mean, that is just a great play from them. Again, when you pick up Aror at the FG, you've got 2 options to immediately call in. Do you go for the tier 2 push? Do you fall back and get the FG? I love that they push in the tier 2. They already had the minion wave. The Titans are falling back. You move forward, pull them into an awkward scenario. Paul throws out his ult, and Jarcorrr just runs through the damn thing. I mean, does not stop, does not worry, and goes straight for him. You called it in there, Jarcorrr. Panitom, get to the back line, do a good job of finding that kill and upsetting the mid lane. But then you've got Zap still hitting hard, moving forward through the tier 2, moving into the Phoenix with the minion wave.
No.
And now,
no. Yark can 2v1 this, won't get the Oni Fury. Should get a kill onto Paul, and luckily for Layers, the Erlang Shen mobile enough to get away. Fire Giant, in the meantime, confirmed by the Leviathan. So FG on all 5, mid lane Phoenix down, and now Paul off the map for 40 seconds. These towers are an afterthought. Luckily for the Titans, the other two Phoenixes are not open just yet. Paul should have some time to get back and respawn. Aror won't. And Gore, this type of stagger could just end the game if the Leviathans group up.
I mean, it's 3v5 for 20 seconds. If they get another kill, it stays 3v5. A perpetual stagger here from the Leviathans, or for the Titans, would just feel awful for them. So you can't step up to this Phoenix. If you step up to this and you die, then you've set your team off into a terrible Titan defense. So you have to play it carefully. 2 towers still standing in the left lane. The Titan's going to have some help.
Leviathans, they've got eyes for the win. And the Leviathans, they are going to walk into the base of the Titans, and Gore, this one, not all that close. Gold never got that out of control, but the kills, they were very lopsided towards the Atlantis Leviathans. Leviathans show up with a game plan. Leviathans execute their game plan. And you think they're going to end the game. Going to take them a bit of time. We're going to pad some stats, get some more fantasy points for the casters, and they'll close out the set 2-0.
Let me say this. You know, we haven't talked about the Fantasy League a lot this week, no waiting room, things like that. I'm regretting not having Zapman right now, right? Zap would be such an easy pickup. I mean, good performance for him. Hindu's going to be popping off with this one. I mean, that was a lot of points for him.
A lot of Leviathans.
Everybody on the Leviathans there just looks incredibly good. It's fantastic.
into the SMITE Pro League. And with that, the Atlantis Leviathans take a 2-0 over the Tartarus Titans. These rather unorthodox drafts out of the Titans still continue to not be able to pay up too well for them, at least in this set. The Leviathans with a very clean game 1 and 2. Now net themselves a win, and are going to push themselves a little bit further up in the standings. They were coming into this one 6th, and Mifflin with a win out here, they now jump themselves up into the 4th seed, and what a great way to do so. I mean, Zapman really being able to step up this week, really kind of not being the targeted focus the entire time from some of these teams, and well, when Zapman's able to get himself a lead, he's able to really make it work.
Yeah, I mean, Zapman looks really good. He doesn't have to lane against another Hunter, though. I mean, I suppose CycloneSpin actually does win the laning phase, right? Like, pressure did belong to the Hercules, but not enough pressure, I think, to justify the Hercules pick, especially with the performance that Zapman's able to find for himself. Of course, Sheento, very safe in lane as well with his Huang, was able to make his impact known. The Leviathans, I would argue, much cleaner in this game, though. Game 1 was really dead even. Sure, they were ahead in kills, but the gold was largely equalized across the board until a Gold Fury steal from a Khepri, and then all of a sudden the game falls apart for the Tartarus Titans. This time around, though, the Leviathans strike early, and they continue to strike and continue to strike and continue, and eventually, after a fair deal of deaths, the Tartarus Titans are just so far behind that their 5-on-5 engagement just was not quite able to line up. Nobody really able to slow down Zapman, and when dudes are dashing into your Titan room like that, it's probably going pretty well.
And this was such a clinch of a play by Zapman, able to stay alive throughout all of the onslaught that he had taken between the Titan, the damage that Cyclone was doing over on the Hercules, and then just barely outliving with his Aegis in order to stay alive there. Pick up 3 kills at the end of the game, finished 5-1. And especially over in that solo lane, I mean, we talk a lot about SOT's performance on the Ullr. This time around, Leviathans just did not even give him an opportunity to really farm. I think he was 0-3 by the time the 10-minute mark came around, so when SOT did get to these team fights, he was really far behind. Did make one at least really flashy play over in the duo lane, goes into a 2v1. With what little money he had left, was able to find a pick against Zapman versus Zapman and Panitom, but even still, not enough to really help his team go through. The Atlantis Leviathans are the ones who come out on top at the end of the day with a 2-0. We've got the jungler for the Atlantis Leviathans sing by for our post-game interview. Panitom with me. Congratulations on the 2-0 win against the Tartarus Titans. Tell me what it feels like to get a win against a team that's kind of been giving you guys struggles so far this season.
It feels good. I feel like we can play really well when we want, and obviously Titans are a really good team. So yeah, kind of like we can be like the best team or the worst team to be fair. So yeah, it feels good.
Yeah, able to get that win out there. Tell me a little bit about that second game. You know, SOT, the only one who lived during that one team fight. You know, he trades out 4 of his players for Jarcorrr, and then it's you and Zapman versus him. And SOT's got sights out for Zapman. Are you just sitting there going, Zap, do anything you can to get him? And what was the communication like with you two?
Yeah, it was like I saw the Ullr stun us like 4 times. I was like, bro, how he has like so many cooldowns? And yeah, and he was asking me if we can kill him, and then I was like, no, low mana was bad communication by us.
Yeah, it's a little bit of miscommunication there. You still end up coming out at the end of the game out there, and you know, coming off a recovery, you know, this the matchup against SoloOrTroll, things like that, always kind of tough to go against teams like that. And looking forward to the future for Leviathan. You think you guys are on that upward trend, kind of reprise your role back at the top of the standings?
No, I cannot say that. We have to wait.
Gotta wait. At least being a little humble out there, Panitom. Well, thank you so much for coming out. You guys, you look good today. Congrats on the 2. I'll let you get back with the team. So, not quite sure exactly where the team's going, but at least being honest about it. You know, some players can be like, yeah, no, we got this every single time. Other players will be like, no, I'm not quite sure. Panitom just going to at least let it go by as the days go on, as the weeks play out through. But we'll go ahead and take a look at the schedule and the standings to see what you have missed. If you're just now tuning in, you've missed the entirety of today of the SPL, at least if you're tuned in for late. This moment. I know. So, actually, it's technically so early. It's only 4:35 right now over
Fair
here
enough.
On the East Coast. An early day with all 2-0s. Aside from one set this entire week, that was the one between the Scarabs and the Bolts. Everything else goes 2-0. Kings and Warriors both finding 4-0s throughout their weekend. Atlantis Leviathans finding a 2-2, at least as far as their games are concerned. But great games across the board, and man, some beatdowns, some close calls, but regardless, at least a good look at the teams now as we move into the second half of this phase.
Yeah, and I think this is going to be pretty indicative, like the standings as they are. Sure, there's surely going to be some shift-ups between like 4 and 6, maybe even 3 through 6. Probably a bit of shuffling as the phase goes on, but I feel like bottom 2, top 2 is starting to get a bit solidified as separation starts to find it, especially at that top seed, man. 8-1 for the Camelot Kings. So impressive. 0-9 down there for the Valhalla Valkyries, still struggling to find their first win of the phase. There's plenty of phase to go, right? But that win should probably come sooner rather than later. Keep your fans on their toes.
Plenty to go to start out Friday. Valkyries and Scarabs at the least, so maybe a chance for the Valkyries to find themselves a win. Solar Scarabs have been up and down throughout there. There's a bit more of an upward trend for the Scarabs. The Valkyries definitely want to be able to try and find that first set win of the phase. The only set win they've gotten so far in Season 9 in the SPL is concerned, and not including Masters, has been their one against Leviathans back in Phase 1, though that was on a downward trending Leviathans at that time. Now with the upward trend the Leviathans have been having, it has been clean play from them. And now, as we get ready, Week 6 of the SPL, as you got to see a lot of the great matchups that are going to be coming there. Very excited for what's to come, Mifflin.
Yeah, plenty of matches, plenty of SPL action. Sure, we're going to take a little break from the SEC, I believe, right? We got
I believe so, actually.
Playoffs coming up for them, so only SPL from here on out. Get excited. I'll be there.
Yeah.
You should
Week
be too.
6 of the SPL going to be kicking off on Friday as per usual. So thanks for tuning in for this week. On behalf of myself, Mifflin, Casters Production, everyone behind the scenes, thanks for watching, and we'll see you next week for more SPL action.
They made me, changed me. Tell me how you hate me, raise me. Wish you never dated me. Lies, tell me lies, baby. Tell me how you hate me. I bet you kiss. Are you lyrics? What are you doing, dude? Miss me so much, you've been going psycho. You ain't gonna. Yeah, I'm getting hyped up right now. I'm actually, honestly, I'm losing motivation listening to you sing right now.